Good afternoon, and thank you for joining me on another episode of Ask Sharifah. I have a very special guest today. When I read about him, I almost felt as if his blueprint was just like mine, because I always say I built my first website in 1994, and I'm reading this gentleman's bio, and he built and designed his first website in 1994. I might have to figure out the month in 1994, but we'll get to that. Let's introduce our guest, who is a leadership educator, Mr. Mike Phillips. Good afternoon, Mike. How are you?
Hey, good afternoon, Sharifah. Thank you so much for having me on your show this afternoon. It's great to talk with you and your audience. I really appreciate it.
Oh, it's an honor. So we got to think back to 1994. I'm going to say, I don't really remember, but I'm just going to assume mine was built in January of 1994.
I'm going to say June. I think mine was June. It's a J month. It's a J month.
I just wanted to be first. You know what I mean? I just wanted to be
I was going to have you write it down. Be like, you write yours down, and then I'll say mine, and then we'll look, right?
Right. I don't remember. I know it was 1994. Actually, you know what? I'm going to go back. It's probably closer to about August. And I remember that because I started my business for the simple fact that I wanted to be a stay-at-home mom. And my daughter was born June 1st, 1994. So I know it was at least later in the year. So you might have won, but that's okay. Go 1994. So I know we're going to learn a lot. The reason, I play a lot and I talk a lot about dates, but the reason that's important is because I'm a business consultant. I always tell people I'm a professional business consultant. That's my profession. That's what I do for a living. But I am one of the most unprofessional professional business consultants that there is. And so when people come to me and they're like, oh, how do I know you can do this? How do I know you know how to design websites? I'm like, okay, Google me. Okay, you will see pages and pages and pages on what I've done because I've been here since 1994. So that date really means a lot. So I'm assuming, and I'm going to say this word, I am going to assume that since you started down this path in 1994, you have a pretty good idea of, what you're talking about.
I would like to think so. I've had other people compliment that. Now, the difference, if you Google Mike Phillips, there's going to be three of us that come up. Okay. One gentleman is a professional saxophonist. That's not me.
That's not you.
Another guy, professional rugby player in England. That also is not me. I'm the third one. I got glasses. Neither of those guys I don't think does. So, but yeah, I've done this for a little bit. So between websites and leadership consulting, sales education, coaching, in kind of all of those facets of business. And I've had really good luck with both retention, people coming back and asking for continued advice, continued growth opportunities. And so that's something that I've enjoyed for a long time, not necessarily since 94, but really consistently for the last about 15 years or more.
Right. So we're going to talk about the latter part because just like myself, I went through ups and downs. I went through layoffs that taught me a lot of the skills that I utilize now. So I know it hasn't been this 25-year, you were the leader for the last 25 years, but that's why I always like to talk about, how you got your start, because all of the entrepreneurs who come to me, they're like, Sharifah, it's so easy for you. I'm like, okay, well, talk to me 25 years ago.
Yeah, no kidding.
Years ago. So how did you, what made you get into website design then?
Well, it wasn't even just website design. What it started as, when I got my start in any sort of business, it was my teenage years, and I was actually a DJ at a roller rink. And,
cool.
And so I thought, like anybody else, for anyone who's ever DJ'd live, when you're in a live DJ atmosphere and everybody's hopping, everybody's excited, there's an energy there that is so exciting. So I started out there. I got into coaching youth hockey. And so however those two bled together for me getting my start in business, for one, on the DJ side, I thought to myself, and you'll get this reference, I figured I was the next Casey Kasem. Right? Because I was like, okay, I'm going to be big in radio. This is a big deal. And that also takes a lot of work. And then I started volunteering to coach youth hockey, which I later got my start and got educated. I got certified as a USA hockey coach for I think I held my certification about 12 years there. And so during that time, for me, it was all about kind of a hobby. It was like, well, how can I get known as a DJ? And there's this new thing on the internet where you could have your own website. So I built out a website, around my name, around what it was that I wanted to do. And I wanted to have a DJ business. I was like, I think 17 years old, And in the meantime, then I was coaching hockey as well, youth hockey. I got more into the roller skating industry, roller skating business. I decided, well, one way I could go professional was to enter into college and take some broadcast courses. So like, I don't know specifically your start in podcasting, but it was one of those that I started in broadcast. I wanted to be on radio. And the irony was when it got to TV, it got to all the TV studies, production for video and all of those things. And that was around 94, 95 timeframe as well. I was like, I am never going to be on TV. You got to be out of your mind. Yeah. Fast forward 25 years later, who knew?
Right.
At the time, I was like, I do not want to do television. So I quit. I never finished my broadcasting degree. And then fast forward on through there, I was a partner in a business, in a roller skating business, coaching youth hockey, coaching youth inline hockey specifically, still doing competing and participating in ice hockey. And then found myself, like so many, I found myself out of a job in 2004. We sold out of the roller rink and got into car sales. So I don't know how much deeper you want me to go. That was kind of the early years on how I just got into business.
You brought us up to the car and the auto, and we're going to get to all of that. But sure. I found some nuggets in just that information that you gave. What stood out to me was the name that you mentioned. Out of any name that you could have mentioned, you mentioned Casey Kasem. So he wasn't just, somebody who played music. He was known for being an announcer. He was known for the things that he said, the information that he portrayed when he was speaking. Casey Kasem was a very opinionated person, so he definitely, when you're a DJ, to look up to Casey Kasem. Now, 25 years later, it seems to me that you're doing the same thing. You have your own podcast. On your podcast, I'm sure, and I got to check it out a little bit more, but you're not just playing music. It's you. No. It's your energy. It's your personality, the way you give that information that people are responding to. So it seems, and again, I'm relating to you because I always tell people I was blessed with at least two gifts. I have the gift of gab and the gift of monetization. And so, my gift was a curse because my mom would be like, if you don't stop talking, that was my thing. I was always talking, So now I have a vehicle to be able to talk. So I see it in your podcast. And so to me, it's like something that came to return to you.
Absolutely. 100%. My kids go through that now when we go into their school and the teacher's like, listen, they're fantastic students. They get great grades. They're well liked. But there's one thing, they talk a lot. And I'm like, it's going to pay off. It'll be all right. And here's one of the things as you're speaking. I remember an early on mentor, one of the people when I first got into the car business, his name's Mark Williams. He's still, I think, in the auto industry. Great man. I remember him saying at one point to me, he was coaching me. He was a mentor to me. And he says, look, here's the thing you got to understand, Mike. And I don't remember what I was frustrated on at the time, but this one thing has stuck with me. He said, you have to understand that your weaknesses are your strengths in excess. So you have a strength, right? You have something that you're really good at, but when you go overboard, like you and I speaking, Sharifah, right? When you go overboard, when you speak too much, that becomes a weakness. It becomes a detriment to you. And that has stuck with me for many, many years.
Yes, but it's amazing how I think this is I think, Mike, we are real off topic, but hey, it's Ask Sharifah. I make up my own topics. But, join me, make up your own topic, Mike. But
I do.
The things that we learn, as children and or as our mentors or along this path, how it affects us. And then we look back and we're like, oh, okay. Because I always tell people one of my favorite quotes, one of the things I live by to this day is something in PE in high school, my coach would say to us. We're in Los Angeles. I don't know how many of your viewers are familiar with Los Angeles, but we have Griffith Park here. And Griffith Park is just the mountains. I ran cross country in high school, and we would always go to Griffith Park to run. And so our coach, we would take the bus, and our coach would always say to us, he was just empowering, and he would say, remember this, you are not in competition with anyone else. The only person you're in competition with is yourself. But the bus leaves at 3. and like that always changes me because it's in life, because I'm not trying to compete against other people. I'm trying to be the best me that I can be. I try to focus my strengths, my weaknesses, so that I can be the best me. I'm not trying to be better than Mike. Mike is Mike. Sharifah is Sharifah, but there are consequences to the choices that I make. And so I love that. And whenever I tell that, people are like, oh, that's interesting. Because, hey, we learn as we go.
It resonates because it is. It's just the only person I got to be better than is who I was yesterday. Maybe who I was an hour ago, that just keep moving. So I love it. I love your energy, Mike. You have a really great energy, and I can see why you're a leadership educator. I believe that great leaders are just simply great people. They have experience, they have wisdom, and they can relay it in a way that other people can relate to. So you took all this young energy and you became a used car salesman. The one thing everyone just wakes up and says, I want to sell used cars. If you ask kids even today, if you said, what do you want to do when you grow up? There are so many of them that would not say used car salesman. They just wouldn't. And so, I did. I ended up, and it was just, I think it's how most people get into the used car business. Most people in the used car business, I understand there's a reputation there, but most people are genuinely good people that are in that business, and just like any business, what happens is a few bad apples build the reputation for many more people. And so people are on guard. And when I got into used car sales, I got into used car sales by accident. I was looking for something, and I had a few other business opportunities, and they were not a fit for me. They just weren't. And I started speaking with a guy there, and he said to me, he says, hey, you've got the gift of gab, man. You could sell anything. Yes. He says, and I remember that these are two things that coincided for me, and it was so crazy. And part of the reason I took the job, one of the people I was interviewing with, he made the comment to me, he goes, man, you really could come in here and you could just light this place on fire. And the irony was 10 years before that, my partner in the roller rink, his dad had made the comment to me, we're talking about business opportunities, and he advised me, he said, well, you can't take this particular business opportunity that's before you. It was a different opportunity that had come up. And he says, you shouldn't take that because one day you're going to light the world on fire. And it was like, it clicked. And I thought, man, he said I was going to light the world on fire. This guy said I was going to light the business on fire. This is the opportunity. I'm going to make a difference as a used car salesman. And so that I got into doing that. I sold cars for a little over a year. And then I quickly I think based on the characteristics of my personality, I moved quickly into a management role, became a sales manager, a finance manager, was the general sales manager at the car dealership for 5 years, and then branched off still with the same dealership, doing digital marketing, SEO, SEM, learning even more deeply the back end of websites, website design, how the setup becomes. It's something that that was certainly a gift to me that I didn't know was going to be a gift at the time, but there had so many learning opportunities. And, in 2006, after I'd been with the dealership a couple of years, I saw a Tony Robbins event, and that kind of coincided. We went to a Tony Robbins event, and I was watching him speak, and the way his presence, the way that he just commanded the crowd. And I thought, man, I could do that. Like, this is where it's going to come together. I'm going to be able to utilize my speaking and broadcasting ability and my salesmanship, and I could do all this. That's awesome. And I could do that. And there's a lot more that goes into that than just jumping up on stage and saying some things. So
no, but see you trying to take me too far. I'm trying to stay down the path. I'm on a yellow brick road. I'm not trying to get to Ajin.
Okay, so 2004.
No, I'm past that. But we're not to Tony Robbins yet. But I just want to say about the whole used car salesman thing. I completely agree with you. I believe that one of the reasons that used car salesmen get such a bad rep, because used cars is one of those rare things that people are actually interested in purchasing used. Everything else, for the most part, I want a new television. I mean, would you really buy a used cell phone? Most people, not many people do.
After you've been a used car salesman, you start looking at everything used, because you're like, I could save money over there. I could save money. Yeah. Depending.
Right, but it's an attitude.
Buy used.
But see, only a select people, because you get that. But see, a used car salesman, they have to find the value in everything.
Mm-hmm.
A used car, you want to sell this car. This car has 200,000 miles on it. But you still have to sell it. So you have to sell and show that it has the best wiper blades ever. Or, the trunk has never been dented, whatever it is. But it's a gift and a knack for finding the best out of any situation.
But what's more important, that what I've found is more important than there's one thing that trumps the product in any sales, used car sales especially. But the person will always trump the product. As long as you believe in the product, as long as the product is a good product. People know when they're coming to buy a used car, they know that it's a used product. Mm-hmm. They know that it's been gently loved, or however you want to phrase it. They come in with that expectation. So as long as the car was inspected, I know it would go, run, and stop, and it would be there for the person. I often think people are more looking for, yes, a quality product, but they're looking for a quality person that will back that product, because machines are man-made. Things are going to go wrong with the car. They're going to go wrong with a used car. It's how is that individual going to handle it when something does go wrong, and what's the level that something's going to go wrong. And hopefully, knock on wood, that you don't have major problems for a number of years. I think people know they're not going to last forever.
Right.
I do think the person trumps the product in most cases. And that's where people struggle, because used car salesman, there is a persona, there is a certain presentation that comes along if it's a used car salesman versus, versus just somebody that is selling a product, if that makes sense.
No, it makes absolute sense. And the whole person trumps the product. That sounds like a book. If I was going to write a book, I would write a book about the person trumps the product. That's one of the things. Write that down. Okay. I want a byline or something in there, though. I want to go to shout out something. Okay. Just so I can get a credit somewhere. But it's always about the person, just even with my PR company. That's why I love PR. In the news, PR is what I do. But it's always about the story. It's always about the person. It's never about the product. It's never about the service. And I can see, like, for you, I'm pretty sure, and I'm just going to guess, I'm going to assume yet again, twice in one interview, that you have people who purchase multiple cars from you because they trust you. You just look trustworthy.
Well, thank you. And yeah, that was one of the things for me for the longest time while I was actively selling on the front line, that I had people purchase multiple vehicles from me. I had people bring their kids and grandkids. I was invited to birthday parties and barbecues. And unfortunately, I was invited to funerals. Who invites their car salesman to their funeral? I was following up with a young lady who was a guest of mine, and she says, "Hey, my mom passed. I would love for you to come and attend the funeral for us." So it is way.
Did you go?
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. I've attended all kinds of things that the doors have opened for me in car sales. But I mean, part of it, and the gal's name was Phyllis. I will never, ever forget her. She's one of the nicest ladies ever. I think I sold 7 members of her family cars. I sold her and her daughter multiple cars. And I remember just being crushed. It was, 2008, 2009. It was 2009 that when I was calling to just do a follow-up call. And it so happened, it's like we were talking beforehand, God puts you in people's lives at a certain time for a reason. I called and her mom had passed away that week. And she says, you've got to come. She says, you got to come. And it was like, okay. So, I mean, it's crazy.
I definitely believe that. And it's so funny to me, or ironic, or however you want to call it. You said one of my favorite phrases, because I always say, when you say it just so happened, that's God. Because it's always like, oh, it just so happened. It's like, no, things have been lined up and arranged for it to happen for you to meet that person, for you to call that day and then find out about the funeral. So it just so happened because it was lined up. But I love people who are spiritual, because I've never been able to understand how you can separate spirituality, whatever it is that you call it, from anything else. Even business, abundance is all spiritual, and we were talking a little bit earlier before the show about one of the things that a lot of people are hoping that you bring back, but the morning verses with Mike. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yes, that was a podcast, or a video podcast I started. I have a Facebook page. I rebranded it a little bit, but I just originally this was about right out a year ago, a little more than a year ago. My wife and I were talking. I became ordained as a minister in 2014, and so that's something that I've always been connected to. I've been connected to God and my faith and my spirituality. And went through the process to do that, and the classes to do that, to marry a dear friend of ours. And then fast forward a couple of years, I said to my wife, and it was like God was speaking to me. I said, hey, listen, all this stuff is going on. I'm doing this video podcast. I'm doing these things. I said, what do you feel about a spiritual message in the morning, like 3 to 5 minutes, nothing long, where I just explore and expand on one single verse of the Bible? And I said, how does that hit you? And I asked my wife that, and she says, no, I think it would be awesome. She says, who's doing that? And I said, nobody. I mean, churches are doing that. But, I had developed a little bit of a following. I said, yeah, okay, I'm going to dive into it and do it. So I started it as everybody's got these challenges on social media. I started as a 30-day Bible verse. I don't want to say challenge, but it was titled 30 Days of Bible Verses. And I did a Bible verse every single morning, 6:15 a.m., Monday through Sunday, through the next Monday through Sunday. And it was like 5 minutes. Like, hey, here's today's verse. I started with Genesis 1:1 and ventured through just whatever hit me, like at the time. There were times I literally opened my Bible and said, this is the verse we're doing today, and would expand on it. What were my feelings and how was God speaking to me in that moment? And then I had so many people that asked, they said, gosh, you should turn it into a show. So I titled it Morning Verses with Mike, made a little logo and stuff. And I did that Monday through Friday, 6:15 a.m. every day for a year. And then I just in January replayed, I had enough to do the replay, my 30 Days of Bible Verses. And then I took a break momentarily I started writing a book. But I did that just purely out of the joy and love for God and for my faith. And it brought me and my family closer together, because then I had my kids asking. I have 3 kids, ages 18, 12, and I have a 6-year-old little girl. And she's asking questions. She doesn't know. And so we started reading the Bible together at night. And that was how I started picking my morning verse for the next day. It was we would read and share, and then I would get up in the morning. And so I've had a few people ask. I've been on hiatus just for a moment. And I had some people say, hey, you're going to bring it back? And I would love to. Like I said to my wife, I said, the difficulty is it kind of evolved. It became work rather than passion, if that makes sense. I was so worried. You saw when we were setting up, I was all worried about how my chair was sitting and what was the background. And it's like, look, that's not what the message was about. So I think I'm going to get back to my roots and that, so to speak. But I did, 300 plus episodes. So it's
wow. That's amazing. I became an ordained minister in 2004. So again, I think our blueprint is just, and that was me. I just want to help people and preach to people and help them kind of change their life. I didn't do any mornings with Reef, anything like that. But I just love to speak to people about spirituality. And I love that you're doing that. And I think that passion that was already inside of you is what came out when you went to see Tony Robbins. So now we're gonna move this to Tony Robbins and how you felt. And you like, I want to do that.
I got one for you to write down now. You could start a morning mass, MAS.
Okay.
Right? Mornings Ask Sharifah. A morning mass, right?
I like that.
Be like, hey, join me for morning mass, right? We're going to talk about the Bible. There's your branding. So I'm sorry, I stole your question there. You said, so I went to go see Tony Robbins.
No. That was gold. See, the gold just comes out, is inspired. So I'm making notes and just making sure I give you a little credit, somewhere down the line in there for that idea. So no, it wasn't a question at all. I was just saying, because what happens, this is what I find as an interviewer, why I like to sit down with business owners, is that other people, our clients, our customers, we always see the finished product. We see you're there, you're lead the team, you're doing this and you're doing that. And it's our lives. So we know, we just kind of try to speed through it. And so what I try to do is take our viewers into our audience through everything so that we can just inspire people. That's what I'm here to do, is inspire people. So I was laid off over 7 times. I was homeless. I went through so many different things. So that's why I tell people, you cannot tell me about, I was divorced twice. You can't tell me about, why you can't do it. That's the main thing. Nobody can give me an excuse. There's people out there with no feet, no arms, and, who are still writing and doing all kinds of things. So as a business owner, you make it look easy. You make it look simple. For you to do nearly a year of morning Bible verses, okay, that seems easy. People don't understand the commitment. I did my radio show. And I think it was a question you asked me a long time ago when you said you don't know how I got started in radio. It was twofold, right? 2 reasons how I got started in radio. And they kind of like you, they happened at the same time. And one of the things that happened is that I already had my marketing and my website design business. And I went to the Los Angeles Convention Center and I was trying to find new clients. I didn't have a booth. So, people kind of laugh like, you don't even have a booth. You know what I mean? You're walking around trying to find clients, so they didn't want to talk. Yes, you understand. It's like the walk of shame almost, because it's like, you can't afford a booth, but yet you want me to hire you. So that happened to me. And then the other thing that happened to me, because I had been, like you said, the search engine optimization, AdWords, search engine marketing, social media management, everything that I was doing, I had people who were asking Sharifah all day, every day, and I couldn't get any work done. So I said, okay, we're going to solve this problem. I'm going to launch Ask Sharifah Radio, and Monday through Friday, 8 a.m. to 9 a.m., you can call and ask Sharifah whatever it is you want to ask. And it was a wonderful tool, because when people would call or text or email at any other time, even if they send an email, Sharifah, how do you do this? You know what? I was going to cover that topic tomorrow on Ask Sharifah. Tune in at 8 a.m. That was always my standard copy and paste response. And so then when the next month or whenever it is, when I went back to the LA Convention Center, the same people who had laughed at me because I didn't have a booth, when they found out I was media, because that's what I was. Now that I'm in radio, they lined up to speak to me. They lined up to be a guest on my show. They were like, hey, Mike, you got to meet Sharifah. Sharifah's this, she can help you with your business. So I had these evangelists who were now going out because I had a radio show. And Ask Sharifah it was just a name really that people gave me, because the majority of my clients that comes to me, and it's not my marketing, it's not my brand, it's just that I do a lot of different things. They will call and they will say, I don't know exactly what you do, but Mike said, ask Sharifah. Like whatever the question is.
I get that. I get that. People are like, what exactly? Can you clarify for me what you do? What are you? Could you? I get that. I get it. I understand you. That's awesome.
So how do you deal with that? I mean, because some people would say it's your branding, your message isn't clear.
For me personally,
if you don't know what you do.
I struggled with that for a long time. To be fair and to be straightforward with it, I struggled with it for a long time because it was like, well, I'm Mike. I can do this. I can do that. But it also when any of us end up in a position where we are a quote unquote jack of all trades in some vertical or some arena, that's when I really realized that you truly can be a jack of all trades and a master of none. So you're saying, look, how do you get clarity? Well, for me, it's come through. I still have to get clarity some days. What do? I love, for me personally, and if I'm going off in the weeds here, just stop me. But I have loved the study of the psychology of leadership between authors, the way that when I learned way back when on how to coach, how to mechanically, how do I get these kids to produce this particular skill that I want them to produce at a good or better level, and then be able to coach them through mastery. So that's, you said, okay, what do I do? For me, the passion behind it is leadership education. How can you teach? Because I do think leadership is a teachable skill. How can you teach others how can I teach others to lead? One of the first things is you have to be a good leader of yourself. You have to be consistent with yourself. You have to be accountable to yourself before you're going to ask any of those things to anybody else. So that's how I got clarity and got going for myself as a leadership educator. Also, I'm a sales trainer and a keynote speaker. The sales training part, it just came natural based on experience. The commonly accepted number is, look, if you've done anything for 10,000 hours, people consider you an expert.
Right.
You've done TV and radio for who knows how many hours since you got started.
I launched in 2009.
Yeah. So over the course of that 10 years, you've put in the hours, you've put in the time to be considered an expert. So there are some things I think we end up with, one that we just innately, we are. You are this. People are, look, how do you get clarity? You are Ask Sharifah. We could ask Sharifah anything on this vertical, and she's going to have an answer to it. Then there are certain things that we aspire to be, like, hey, that's what I want to be. That's what I want to be known for. And it comes down to, you have to start putting in the work, and you have to start putting out the word. So for like with my morning verses with Mike, that prior to that, people knew I was a spiritual person. But the interesting one, once I had done that every day for a year's time frame, then all of a sudden people began coming to me and seeking me out as a spiritual educator, as a pastor. That wasn't something that I was seeking, so to speak. But that's one of those verticals that's who I was. So you have to be able to engage and have that conversation with somebody when they ask.
No, I think that's an excellent answer. And I think one of the questions that I asked like 5 years ago, because I went off on a tangent, was, or actually statements that I made, was for you to do that for a year, it's not as easy as it seems. For me to do Ask Sharifah Radio at 8 a.m., come, rain or shine, if I wanted to go out the night before or whatever it was, I still had to get up at 8 o'clock, by 8 o'clock to be ready to do a radio show, to do it daily, to commit to that. So for you, I understand what type of commitment it is for you to do Bible verses or anything for a year. That's a lot of effort. I mean, there are times when, you may not have felt like doing it. There may have been times when you had a little sniffle. There have been times when you may have wanted to go on vacation for a week.
I did them from the hotel.
Yeah, I was going to say the same thing. There are plenty of times when I had to do it remotely. Yeah. But it's a commitment. And then over time, people begin to recognize you as that person. That's one of the things I always talk to my clients about, is I'm always surprised by people who say, you know, Sharifah, you know, people say social media works. They say social media gets you clients, but I'm on social media all day and I never get any clients. And then I go to their social media and there's no mention of their business. There's no mention, and it doesn't have to be salesy. That's not what I'm talking about. But based on their social media, you should be able to determine what their business is, what their service is. Even if it's just a pastor and you want people to go listen, you know, to, or not being a pastor, but you want people to go listen to your morning show, somewhere at some point, you have to mention it. But people, they don't mention it, and then they wonder why they have no clients.
Being successful at anything, passionate or not, being successful at anything in life takes work.
Yes.
That's what it boils down to. It takes a commitment. If you want to be a successful spouse, it takes work. Because you get this sometimes, right? Yeah. With your spouse. I'm right. No, I'm right. You know, yes. I love my wife. She is an amazing, amazing woman. She is an amazing wife. She's an amazing mother. She's the world to me. We still get this, you know, that the headbutt from time to time, and the relationship takes work. And you have to say, hey, if this is not working, what do I, you know, ask a better set of questions. If this isn't working, if this outcome is not what I'm wanting, what are the questions I need to ask? What are the different things that I need to do? People will go on, you know, relating that to your social media comment. People will go on and say, well, yeah, hey, I posted this deal about my business and I've got no clients coming to me. Well, you did it one time.
Right. Absolutely.
Right? You posted one time. You didn't put what your title is. You're not continuing. The number one thing that will drive business to anybody is create value for your audience, whoever your audience is. Doesn't matter if you're, you know, your audience for Ask Sharifah, you create value to those people. You create value to entrepreneurs. They'll come back to you. You create value to your spouse as a husband or wife. They'll stay with you. Right? Why? Because when that person got with you, right? When you got together, I know I'm bouncing all over. My brain fires like this. So just
I'm with you. I'm following along. I'm taking notes.
When you got with that person, when you built the relationship with that person, it's because you were doing things to provide value to them. And they thought, hey, I like you, right? Why? Because you brought me a cup of coffee before I asked. It's stupid stuff like that. And then you wonder why all of a sudden then you're working 60 hours a week, or you're doing something else that's not that passionate and not that exciting, and you come home and you don't do this stuff anymore, and you kick off your shoes and you lay on the couch and you go to sleep and you spend zero time together. You wonder why they're struggling in the relationship. Same thing in the business world. Same thing as a parent, right? If you want to be a good parent, I know I'm all over the place, but just—
You are fine, because I'm taking notes, Mike.
If you want to be a good parent, I feel like I should get preaching. If you want to be a good parent,
I'm following along.
If anyone wants to be a good parent, they're going to make mistakes. And it's okay to ask other parents that you think are good parents what they're doing. And they serve their children. They do things for their kids to make sure their kids are growing, not to be their child's friend, but to be a good mentor and a good advisor. And they provide them things that nobody else can provide, you know, so that takes work. If you want to be a good business person, bringing it back to business and entrepreneurship, if you want to be a good business person, it takes more than one post. You know, we have such a twisted sense of what it takes to be successful right now. I think especially we live in one of the coolest times ever with social media and cell phones and a camera on everybody and all. Like, there is some really cool stuff in our current environment in 2019. The problem is people are looking at people like Ask Sharifah. They're looking at people like Will Smith on YouTube. Like, he's starting to blow up on YouTube, you know, in a totally different vertical. People look at the Tony Robbins or Gary Vaynerchuk. If you're familiar with Gary Vaynerchuk, they look at these people that are entrepreneurs and business people and they go, oh my gosh, they were an overnight success. Right. No, they were a whole bunch of overnights to produce success. You're just seeing it now because it is accessible to you through Facebook, through YouTube, through Instagram. You know, so that's to me, I think it is so relevant what you're saying when it comes down to any success in anything. It's going to take work, and it'll take different kinds of work, right? The work I put into to my family is different than work that I put into my work as a digital marketer, is different than the work I put into my podcast. Like you and I are sitting talking and I'm rambling on. I could speak and talk and get fired up and passionate and go on a podcast like this for an 8-hour sermon or seminar or webinar or whatever you want to call it. And then we could shut this off and get on the phone and still keep going about it, because that passion fuels you, but that's a different kind of work. You know, all those things take work to be successful.
Okay, Mike, I love that. I think we're going to have to open us up a church somewhere, because we've having us some church up in here. So I love it. You hit on so many different points, and I'm going to try to touch on at least 2 out of 3 of the points that you hit on, right? Number one, I'm going to give you 3 then, because then I'm going to bring it back to business. I love what you said about marriage and bringing the cup. It's also this, the coffee. It's the same in business. What happens, and one of the things that I found, and a lot of things that I find out simply by accident, but in social media, what happens is people post, and then they go, nobody's listening to me. Nobody's responding to me. And what do? They stop. But they haven't continued. So just like in marriage, sometimes people don't feel valued because they may have brought you your cup of coffee for every day for a week, and you didn't, necessarily you may have said thank you, but maybe not necessarily shouted from the rooftop or made a big deal out of it. So that next week there's no more coffee because the person didn't feel that you even noticed that they brought the coffee. And you're like, wait a minute, I was expecting the coffee. I got the coffee all week. Where's my coffee? And they're like, well, you don't have coffee because you didn't acknowledge the coffee.
Well, they don't love me anymore.
Yeah.
No, I just didn't bring coffee. It's not that I don't love you. I just didn't bring coffee. Okay.
Exactly. And that's what people do on social media. And let me tell you again, I found this out by accident, because this is when okay, I'm going to tell you something. I'll tell everybody.
Okay.
The only social media I'm on is Facebook. I have my Facebook fan page, right? And I have my followers. I'm not on Twitter. When I was on Twitter, I had about 300,000 followers. I'm not on LinkedIn. When I was on LinkedIn, I had about 15,000 connections. And I shut everything down because I had too many people that had access to me. And I was like, not everybody's about to ask Sharifah. And I kind of put up boundaries and put up walls and shut down a whole bunch of stuff. But one of the things that I found when I had more people who had access to me is that I would post something, a comment, whatever it was. And I may have, I'm just going to assume, I'm thought a number, 10 comments on it, right? But then I would have a conversation, and a few people, it started to happen. A person would make a comment about what I said in that post. And I would go back to the post and I would be like, but they didn't even comment. Like, I didn't even know that person had saw the post. And a lot of people, when you're doing something, they may not want to show that they've seen it or like it or comment, but if it's on your social media, there are a lot more eyeballs that see what you're doing than you really think. But if you're consistent and you continue to post and you continue to share, then all of a sudden you will see the engagement build. You'll see the likes build. You'll see the shares build. You'll see the comments build. One of the ways that I got, again, I love the whole, obviously, ask thing. Scripture tells us, ask ye shall receive, knock and the door shall open. And most people don't ask for the sale. And so what I've always done, I've done it naturally. I try to make it fun, but I always ask people to share my posts. Every now and then, and maybe twice a year, but I'll share my Facebook page on my personal profile. And I'm like, hey, if you haven't liked Sharifah or shared my page, now's a good time to do so. And guess what? People do, because I've asked them to do it. So that was the example with the social media, and the same thing with the relationships. And I love what you were saying about the children, especially saying, we're not trying to be their friends, because you and I are around the same age range. And what people older than us used to say is that our generation always wanted to be our child's friend. They say that's where we went wrong. We're always trying to be friends with our children. My children are 21 and 24 now. And I've always told my children, you can say whatever you want to me. You cannot say it however you want to say it. Mm-hmm. You must be respectful. But I want my children to have a voice. And now my son, my daughter's 24, my son's 21, and my son talks to me about everything. And he's like, Mom, thank you for talking to me. And I'm like, no, son, thank you for talking to me. You know, how many 21-year-old guys want to sit and have a discussion about life with their mother? But open conversations, open dialogue, to bring it back to social media. Think about it just that way. It's social media. It's about socializing. You get the business through relationships. If you learn how to build relationships, then you'll see the customers, you'll see the clients, you'll see the sales. I do speaking engagements. I don't push a book. I don't push an offer. But when I walk away, I get new PR clients. Because people are like, hey, whatever energy she has, I want her to use her energy to get me in the news. So it's just about building relationships.
The best way, the absolute best way to get people to engage with you is to engage with them.
Absolutely.
When it comes to social media, that's going back. I know we've hung on this one for a minute, but we go, oh, I posted that one thing, and how come people didn't like it or comment? Well, because you haven't been participating with them. You know what you do? Go in, comment on their post, like the things that you like, share insight with other people. And then when you post something, they'll return the favor. It's a law of reciprocation.
That's true. There's also a rule that says for every, you can only post an advertisement, or this is like a rule of thumb. It's not, written hard anywhere, but you should only post like a sales or advertisement at no less than every third post. So you don't want to be all sell. Talk about, share a picture of your dog, share a picture of flowers. Then, hey, did you know I just published my new book? But you want to spread it out so that people get to know you as the person. On my personal Facebook page, I tell people, Mike, you may not want to ask Sharifah, because I'm going to give you the God's honest truth, because I see it. People love to ask me, what is Sharifah going to say about this? What is, because I'm going to give you the truth, the real. I keep it real. My Facebook fan page, my business page, I just kind of share stuff. I don't get really opinionated. I don't talk about politics, anything. But on my personal fan page, I love having deep discussions, because when people trust me, guess what? Like you said, and I'm going to quote Mike Phillips, they want to do business with
me. Here, as I'm hearing you speak too, when you need another page called Sharifah's Answers. You got to ask Sharifah's Answers. You're like, here's the unedited, here's the real deal. All right. Yeah. Somebody asked me this. Here's the real answer. This is unfiltered. Right? Yes. All right.
I'm known for doing that. So I think, this has been a lot of fun. I think we came on here, or at least I came on here, to talk a little bit more about your leadership aspects and what you do in leadership, your keynote speaking. But I just always believe it's the person. People fall in love with the person. People want to learn about leadership from someone they think is a great leader. But we also I don't want to have too much fun and not focus on your actual business. I want you, if you would, to talk a little bit about some of the services you provide for your clients and what you do.
Sure. So what I'm really focused on right now, I've got two verticals that I'm heavily focused on for 2019. I do keynote speaking on leadership, and about 75% of the conferences I participate in are automotive leadership based, because that's been my background for the last 15 years. But leadership is leadership. It's about the people and bringing people with you and growing them. So leadership consulting, leadership education. I have, and I didn't tell you this beforehand, and this is not necessarily a plug, but I have a separate website for the consulting piece. And it's leadershipelite.net. And that is strictly for the consulting piece. And you don't have to give that one at the end or whatnot. It's not the shameless plug. It's just one that I haven't done a lot of promotion on. It is one for, one-on-one coaching and consulting calls. I will have my keynote speaking opportunities there. I do have some free resources. That's a site I just started building within about the last 30 to 45 days, just to clean up my existing website. So that's the consulting piece, keynote speaking piece. What I'm really focused on this year, I'm writing a book titled Elite, and it's going to be leadership based. It's going to have some specific characteristics that people can focus on to learn to lead better. And so whether it's whether you're managing, 3 employees at a small business, or whether you're leading and managing 3,000 at a much larger business, there's specific characteristics that you can help provide to your people to allow them to grow. And when your people grow, your business grows. And so that's the focus of the book coming up this year. And then I've also been heavily focused on my YouTube channel. My YouTube channel, I do 3 primary focuses. I do motivation, I do sales training, and I do leadership. And I've got about 330, maybe 350 videos right now on that site, averaging about 10 to 15 minutes in length, that are sales training, motivationally based, and leadership. And all of that is totally free on my YouTube channel. So I'm focusing on growing a larger subscriber base on YouTube, because I see that's an opportunity for my business. And then the authoring this year, and then also kind of the wing piece, which I've done more of in the past, but is not my primary focus this year, is the consulting piece on businesses and individuals especially.
I like it. I just have one more question.
Yes.
May I have the Stay Humble, Hustle Hard in the back? Can you send that to me?
This specific one off my wall. That's the only one.
It doesn't matter. I just love it. It's just great.
I'll have to look at where I ordered it from.
Hard. See, I told you, ask and you shall receive. I get a lot of free stuff.
Let me see what I can do.
Half the time I don't expect to get it, but I love that. Stay humble, hustle hard. I love it. So you're going to see an Ask Sharifah, and it may be somewhere, I don't know, in the background the next time over here. The next time.
I'm pointing this way, you might be pointing that way. It's all right.
The next time you'll see it. So I'm having too much fun. I think I don't know what it is.
I know I've ran over my time for sure.
Jess, it's okay. It's my fault. But because I was having fun.
It's your show. You do what you want.
I know. That's what I tell people. That's why I told you I'm an unprofessional, professional business consultant. If you don't like it, you can leave. Anyway, so I'm going to stop playing. We've come down to the last few minutes of the show, Mike. And what I always allow my guests to do is to take a few minutes to really reintroduce or introduce, or just really let our viewers know what you want them to take away from your interview.
Gosh, that's a lot. We've covered so much. Well,
I might have missed something.
For me, what do I want them to take away from this interview? I'm just happy to, I'm thank you so much for having me on your show. I'm trying to look between here at the camera and at you on my screen, but thank you so much for having me on the show, because it has been a blast. I really enjoyed our conversation. And for me, I would like to take away, or I would like your audience to take away, our audience, that relationships are important. When people reach out, like you reached out to me and we ended up having a little email conversation and so forth. It doesn't matter what level they start at, whatever the relationship, be open to it. And I think we get bombarded so often. I get 10, 12 robocalls a day and 300 emails and random now in text marketing, and everybody on social media wants to connect. I do think it's important sometimes to slow down and at least look at the person behind the message. Who's the individual? Because we talked a lot about social media and wives and husbands and kids. And like you said at the onset, as an entrepreneur, people want to see the real you. They want to see where you came from. Well, I think the whole premise, the whole theme of what you're sharing is like, well, the relationship, the person behind whatever screen it is important. Right. And we get numb to that. We get numb because they're just, this person's just text, so we can text back, screw you, or what, and not my choice of words, but I've had those sent to me plenty of times. You text that back when somebody that is unknown is reaching out to you, or immediately hanging up when you don't know the person and stuff. Just slow down and look at who is the real person. And is it someone that can add value to you, and can you add value to them? If so, then you should nurture that relationship. I mean, I think that's a theme behind your show, is what I've gotten out of it today for myself. I hope others have too. And so yeah, that's it.
I think that was it in a nutshell. So I really loved it. I really loved it. And I want to thank you for being a guest on today's episode of Ask Sharifah.
Absolutely. Thank you again for having me, and really appreciate it. Look forward to chatting with you some more.
You are very welcome. This has been a very fun show. And I think I usually don't act like this. I don't know what it was. I think it was the synergy and everything that we had in common that I really just want to relax a little bit and show a funner, lighter side. So to any of my viewers, who are offended, I don't know, next. But for everyone else, please share this interview, because in between all the laughing, the talking, the sharing of stories, the sharing of history, the shared experiences, there were a lot of gold there. There was a lot of information there. There was a lot of really good nuggets that can really change your business. Sometimes as business owners, entrepreneurs, CEOs, we get so caught up in the business and we forget to be human. Have fun. If you've never heard, Mike, have you heard of the Pikes? I'm still going on, but Pikes Fish, the story about Pikes Fish in Seattle?
No, I haven't.
Okay, so real quickly, so we're not here all night, but there was this owner who has been in his Pikes Fish in Seattle, but he was about to lose his shop, and he was out of money. There was nothing he could do to save it, and so it's a fish market. And so he went to all his guys and he told them, he said, you know what, I'm losing the business. There's nothing that I can do. Let's just have some fun, and they did. And so what they did is they started tossing the fish all over and just having a fun and, with the fish, and it was flying fish everywhere, and it attracted a crowd, and the crowd purchased the fish. And so by the crowd purchasing the fish, he saved his company. And you know what he does now? He travels the world teaching people, inspiring people, motivating people, marketing people to just simply have some fun. And whatever happens, happens. So again, thank you. I can't even just continue because I'll be here all night. But
just
thank
throw
you.
The fish. Throw the fish.
Just throw the fish, and we're going to have a good time. So all our viewers, if you want to see any more interviews, visit the website. Or if you like to be a guest, visit my site at asksharifah.com. Until then, everyone have a wonderful evening.